Okay, welcome everyone to the January meeting of the Bronxville Planning Board. Appreciate everyone coming out tonight. First of all, I think we're going to start with the minutes of our December 10th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look? And if everyone's good, can someone make a motion, please, to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Your second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And a gentle reminder for everyone, I know the fellow in the back will be very happy if we speak into our mics tonight, along with all the viewers at home. So if we can turn towards everybody, that's helpful for people who aren't here. Okay, first item on the agenda is the proposed gelato shop at 5 Pondfield. If there's someone here for the applicant, if you can please step up to the mic, identify yourself, and tell us about the opportunity.
Hi, how are you? I'm Michael Mariani, one of the owners, along with my wife, Priscilla. My wife and I both come from a combined 40 years of food and beverage and hospitality. I cooked for a number of years and then transitioned out of that and started to run restaurants, hotels. And my wife is still a pastry chef down in the city, which she came to New York, went to CIA, worked in a number of restaurants, received accolades such as Michelin stars, and now we're opening up our own first business together. And that business is a gelateria called Gelateria Sorella. So that's what we present here, and where we're looking to open it up is on the corner of Pondfield and Sagamore, right next to two other restaurants right now, La Casa and La Maison. And what we're looking to do is really bring the authenticity of gelato. The ice cream and gelato do vary. And we've spent a lot of time traveling. We've gone to Europe. Italy is our favorite. And while there, we really kind of fell in love with the gelato. I worked with a woman by the name of Silvana that had a thing called Vivoli. And while I worked with her, I started understanding really the rich culture behind it and what made gelato. So we wanted to open up our own shop, and this is it here on the screen. I don't know. Sorry.
Maybe you can tell us about our hours of operation.
Sure, of course. So our hours of operation, we're going to be a 6-day-a-week operation, Tuesday through Sunday. We'll be open from 12 p.m. till 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what you'll be able to do about it. We did receive a letter from a community member concerned about sort of traffic at this intersection. There are other ice cream related shops in town, and in the evening when people get a hankering for some ice cream or gelato, there are a lot of deliveries that take place, and
Yep.
folks pull up to pick up those deliveries, and some of those shops are choke points in the village, and this is a choke point. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I think it's one of the issues with the location.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously we don't haven't experienced it yet, but I think that what's important is finding the efficiencies in what we're capable of controlling in our steps, our standard operating procedures, so that we can efficiently process any sort of deliveries or orders, and so that there isn't congregation and a congestion of cars, people, and delivery personnel.
Other questions from board members?
How much waste does a gelato place produce?
Not a lot, actually. Gelato it's a low waste food product, being that it's frozen, so you don't have a lot of spoilage. So you don't have a lot of things that are getting thrown out. And it has a relatively narrow ingredient list for the most part. So most of the stuff that we will be discarding of is mostly recyclables. With milk containers, dairy containers, things of that nature. But we have a very high usage of products, so we don't get a lot of actual food waste that we would have to discard of.
And the area where you will place that waste is where on that?
So if you were to come out the exit and then walk up Sagamore, just on the right-hand side, there's a small gated section at the end of the building, which is the shared garbage.
So up
location.
toward La Casa.
Just past La Casa at the end of the building on the right-hand side. Yes.
And that Is that a shared space? Did you have to make any arrangements for
No,
that? or-
it's shared space. The landlord owns the entire
Oh, I
building,
see, the
obviously.
landlord, yeah.
So it's shared space, and then obviously we would have contracted services with carting companies and have our own dedicated garbage bin. And obviously to make sure that we manage our contribution to the garbage, we would have and work with the carting company to make sure that we had a proper schedule so that we didn't have any sort of overflow buildup and everything was, removed and taken out of there at a, an appropriate way and timing.
My question, and some of the pictures are very pretty. It
Thank
looks
you.
like you have other products that you're going to sell there. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, so I mean, our main focus is going to be gelato, right? We don't want to lose focus from that. We will be offering just some coffees, but tied into kind of being an authentic gelateria, we're going to be doing and focusing on Italian and espresso-based coffees. We'll have a small addition of some retail items such as, dry baked goods, biscotti, cookies, things of that nature, some confections. But the focus is really going to be gelato at the end of the
And how
day.
many staff will be there on a sort of, like, how many people in total? And then what do you see as like, is it going to be like peak hours, you have more people, or
Sure.
staff will be a certain size all the time?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to imagine that probably a seasonal thing between summer and winter, even though some of the biggest brands like Jenny's and Ben and Jerry's all started in Columbus, Ohio, or Burlington, Vermont, all cold weather locations, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's gonna be different employee volumes based off the season, but we'll never typically have more than four to five employees at any given time. It's a small space. It's an efficiently served product. And then it would be my wife and I who would be running the location as well.
And on the map there, it's a nice map to show. Are those going to be seats that by the window? Is that what those little circles are?
Yeah, correct. So what there'll be is higher, kind of bar height stools. We're going to have a small little counter that'll run along the length of the windows. What we want to do is, we want to obviously create an ambiance, a feel. The lighting is going to be, specifically chosen so that when you look out onto this corner, right from the outside, it's this wonderful, glowing, warm light that just kind of invites you in. And we want to give people obviously a place to kind of sit down and enjoy the gelato, not just like have to take it and go outside, especially in the winter. And we want a slightly higher elevation of seating so that people can look out and people can look in and see, people congregating and, coming together within the shop. We don't want it to just be grab and go. We'd like for people to kind of enjoy the space itself as well.
I have a question.
Mhm.
How often will staff members be going from the kitchen out towards the display area through that double acting door?
Very little. It is not the concept in and of itself is all kind of pre-prepared, right? Ice cream doesn't have to be made to order. It's not like someone places an order and they have to run into the back. So the traffic from the front of the house, let's call it, to the back of the house, from the staff standpoint, is going to be very, very minimal.
I only bring it up just because the door, which has a window,
Yep.
is higher than maybe a lot of the children that'll be in there. And if they are congregating around that counter,
Mhm.
There may be some issue with, conflict opening the door and
Got it.
not
Are you
seeing-
referring to the counter on the bottom of the screen?
Right.
The what? So we'll reconsider that, absolutely, especially, with that being a concern. Yeah.
There's several solutions, but,
Yeah.
it's just being conscious that kids could be congregating in that area
Sure.
and that if they're not seen, they could be hit with the door.
And a valid concern, and we can definitely revisit that with the architect and maybe have something with a larger pane for greater visibility.
In your vision for growth, you reference expanding into wholesale. Would that production come out of this kitchen or another location?
No, that wouldn't come out of this kitchen. That would be a much bigger long-term vision of the company. Yeah.
And then are you also including your application requesting outdoor seating? Is that something you envision or not?
It's definitely something that we would love to take advantage of, but we know that it definitely requires, an application to the planning board, and if we made that decision, we would definitely come forward with that and explore that. But it wouldn't be more than probably 2 small tables with 4 seats combined.
If there are no other questions from the planning board, why don't we go ahead and open up the public meeting, see if anyone from the public has any comments on this application. Since they aren't here, I will note, we did receive and read the letter from a member of the public about the concerns about traffic and backups. And this is an especially difficult choke point, I think more difficult than what we see on Park Place, because you can't really go around double parked traffic in this spot the way you can in some others. So I think what we would ask is that everyone be aware and be a good neighbor and try to come up with solutions. I don't think you can come up with them in advance, but it's something that I think everyone's going to care about.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we'll close the public meeting. Any further discussion? If not, does someone want to make a motion? And Kevin, you had given us, I believe, some conditions that should be attached to this motion.
It's just more about the garbage, because they have 2 restaurants that have garbage there, and it's been an issue already. So now you're adding a 3rd one. So maybe we put some sort of condition on there that, it's got to be, keep the egress path open, because that's an egress path from upstairs of the building. And, keep that open and,
What have the problems been with the trash?
Well, there's 2 restaurants.
Yep.
Even though now they're owned by the same owner, it's a little different. Now you're
Yeah.
going to add a 3rd one. But they were blocking the stairs. Had dumpsters that were sticking out. They have the handle on the side. You walk by, you could get hit in your side. And, they got to come up with a better plan. I think I suggested to the owner of the restaurant that if they took their air conditioners and put them up on a wall, that'd give you more room for garbage containers. So that's something that the landlord or all 3 of them would have to come together on. So
Right, so I'll read out these conditions. I propose that they be part of the resolution that we have here that Kevin had sent along. No more than 12 seats allowed, no outdoor seating unless additional approvals for sidewalk cafe. Seating are granted, sidewalks must be cleaned and maintained daily. Employees cannot park at meters, merchant parking spaces must be acquired. Just want to make sure all those are okay with the applicant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, with that, does someone want to make a motion?
I so move that we approve the application with the conditions that you read.
And do we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good luck with your business.
Thank you very, very much. We'll see you guys there. Have a great day.
You will.
Right down the street from where I live.
Okay, so I think we're going to move into the next application, which is continued from prior meetings. This is Iona's proposed baseball field application. One note I want to make at the beginning, while we're continuing, I think, to make good progress on this application, having reviewed with council current status, this is not one on which we're going to be able to take final action tonight, but this is, I think, another meeting in which we're going to learn a great deal from the applicant and from the public, and so we think this is very worthwhile, even though there won't be final action taken tonight. So with that, I'd invite the applicant to come up and update us, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We're sitting here taking a little time thinking maybe a gelato stand would work at the, that seems to work well here. Anyway, for the record, Mark Weingarten, partner in the law firm of Del Bello, Donnell and Weingarten, Wise Wiedeker. My pleasure to be here tonight representing Iona University in connection with its request for site plan approval to permit certain modifications to the baseball field on its Bronxville campus located at 182 White Plains Road. I won't repeat the names of everyone that's been here. You've met them all. We're here joined by our team from Iona, as well as our experts, our architect, our sound engineer, and our engineers from Langen, our traffic people, and they are here. I will be the only one making the presentation at the start. As we've been here for a long time, we're going to summarize a few things. And then, of course, you're going to open it to the public, but our experts are here for answering any questions or additional questions you may have. As I've mentioned, we have now appeared here 4 times, so it's not necessary to repeat the full application. You're aware that Iona acquired the 28-acre former Concordia campus in January of 2022, and in the last 4 years has made some very significant investments and intends to continue to do that. The campus houses numerous facilities for its burgeoning field of health sciences, as well as performing arts and athletics, just as its predecessor had there. The baseball field is located on a roughly 9-acre parcel on the east side of White Plains Road at its intersection with Rose Avenue. The property is located in the Residence A district, which principally permits a school use and other athletic field uses. Our initial discussions date back with the village more than a year ago. We first appeared before this board on June 11 of last year for the proposed modifications to the baseball field. Since our last appearance before the board on December 10, we submitted a letter to this board on December 23, responding to comments from the village's planning and engineering consultants, KSCJ, as well as its traffic engineers, Collier's Engineering and Design. They were also not just traffic, but your sound consultants, the Westchester County Planning Board, and this board and its comments. Subsequent to the December meeting and the December 23rd letter, we received comments again from KSCJ Consulting, Collier's Engineering and Design, and some members of the public, which we are prepared to address this evening. As we've stated at previous meetings, there have essentially been 4 major areas of potential impacts which have been identified by this board, and which have been addressed in our submissions, and they are as follows. 1, stormwater runoff. As mentioned at the last meeting and the meeting before that, the proposed stormwater improvements will decrease the runoff to Crawford Street approximately 70% in the 1, 10, and 100-year storm events. This far exceeds our legal obligation to mitigate any potential environmental impacts, and you had testimony from Michael Tucker from Langen Engineering at your last meeting. Second is sound impacts. You heard from our sound engineer, John Folks, at your last meeting regarding the proposed PA system, which is for game use only, approximately 20 to 22 games during the day. Our expert testified that the sound level of the PA system at our property's perimeter approximates the typical background noise in the neighborhood experienced at that time of day. He also addressed the temporary issue of noise from construction impacts. Please let the record reflect that Iona is willing to commit to use best practices to limit construction noise, including developing a sound and vibration mitigation plan, which will occur after we have a contractor on board. And as we've discussed previously, and is typical for a project like this, as you're going through a lengthy approval process, you don't have your contractor on board yet, you wait for your approval, but we're happy to put those conditions and accept those conditions within a planning board approval that we would commit to this before we would go ahead and get started on construction for building and receive a building permit. You also identified the third potential impact of safety from batted balls. You've heard from our athletic director regarding the fence height and protection from batted balls. He described the safety mechanisms in place to protect people outside the property. We are raising the netting in the outfield from approximately 20 feet to 40 feet and adding netting along rows for the first time to protect against line drives leaving the campus. He also mentioned the purchase of a batting cage, which will significantly protect against foul balls on Rose Avenue during batting practice. This is a significant improvement upon the existing condition. Our athletic director testified using the best evidence available, existing statistical data, to demonstrate how unlikely it is for an accident to occur. The fourth identified potential impact is traffic and parking. We have submitted a game day traffic management plan, a construction management plan, and a further revised parking analysis. In sum, the studies show a minimum of 93 parking spaces available during games, and that we expect a need of only 43 to 65 spaces during those times. Iona is willing to restrict access to the parking field off Rose, the field off Rose Avenue, again, the gate, we're willing to restrict it to personnel and to the players coming in from the bullpen only, which removes any need for a sidewalk on Rose, as there will be no increase in pedestrian traffic on Rose Avenue as a result of our proposal. We are also willing to enter into conditions for use of the parking lot during games on Rose Avenue to personnel only, again, who will be able to access from there, but not fans. There will be nobody allowed to park on Rose to be able to, would need to walk around to the other part to access the field. As to the comments from our tenant, the fundamental principle here, which they're choosing to ignore, is that Iona is holding classes.
Could you please just identify the tenant for
The
those who may not be
conservatory,
aware?
the Concordia
Aware, thank you.
Conservatory, who
Yep.
put in some, put in another recent letter and has testified and put
Yep.
in other letters. So I'll start again. The fundamental principle here, which they choose to ignore, is that Iona is holding classes, including performing arts classes, at the same time on the same campus. Our tenor suggests that Iona will be somehow interfering with their right to use their leased premises. Is it logical to assume that Iona will create a condition which will interfere with the conservatory classes when it will have the identical impact on our own students? We don't think so. As to specific voiced concerns by the conservatory, vehicle access and ADM compliance will be maintained throughout the construction process. The tenant's right to non-exclusive parking will continue to be permitted in the Stein Hall lot, even when certain parking spaces will need to be closed off during construction. Remember that during construction, the ball field will not be in use and no parking for that use will be needed. There will be more than adequate parking. I believe it's roughly 16 spaces that the conservatory uses or has been using over time. Once a contractor is hired, we will review the construction schedule in detail with the conservatory. It should be noted that any required rock removal is at the furthest point from the conservatory. We also state for the record that the conservatory's interpretation of its rights under the lease are disputed by Iona. With that said, we intend to work with them to avoid impacts once our contractor is on board. And again, we are willing to agree to conditions in the planning board approval to make sure that, and to ensure that that occurs. We believe that Iona has fully complied with its obligations under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. While some appear to believe or suggest that our project must be silent, cure all existing flooding problems in the area, present a 100% guarantee that no baseball will travel outside our campus, and that no additional traffic will occur from our use of the improved field, that is not the standard of review required by law. We believe we have far exceeded our legal obligations and that no significant environmental impact resulting from our proposal has been identified. It is well established in case law in New York State that community opposition is not a proper basis to reject a project. Moreover, the legal standard requires this board to review the potential impacts from the proposed action, not the existing condition. What are we really doing here? We are making improvements to a field which was built in 1960 and essentially continuing the same use and the same frequency of use which has been in existence for decades. Iona is proposing to lower the field, to make it level. We are adding fence height in the outfield and netting on Rose Avenue, which has never existed in the decades of use of the baseball field, to protect against line drive foul balls. We do this even though there is zero evidence in the record of an accident occurring in the last 55 years. We are improving stormwater significantly from the existing condition. We are proposing approximately 20 afternoon games annually, which is not an increase from the prior use by Concordia. We are adding stands for their comfort, a press box for our students who cover the games, and a PA system which is designed to emit sound at background levels at our property line. To be at this for more than a year is approaching what our governor referred to yesterday in her State of the State as weaponizing the seeker process. And the seeker process is growing into and being used in a way to make sure that people are not able to accomplish anything and just have to spend months. The studies are complete. Your experts can review the information and state if and where they disagree with our experts, and you as a board can determine if we have the legal right to proceed. Iona should be permitted to proceed to the ZBA for the variances necessary for us to finish the process and obtain approval to improve the field. In order to do that, we need to conclude the environmental portion of this process and receive a negative declaration, which we believe we have more than adequately demonstrated in the record that we are entitled to. Upon return to the planning board, we can discuss the appropriate conditions to approval to ensure that all the issues which have been addressed are required to be carried out. So with that, we'll close our presentation. If there are any questions, we have our experts here, and of course, there'll be public comment.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I'll start us off with two questions, and I'm sure other folks here will also have their questions. So the first has to do with the fence potentially wrapping around for a certain extension to Rose Avenue. That was something that was specifically suggested by Westchester County in their review. I think it was their first recommendation, and it appears in this submission that has not been added. So if you or someone could comment on that, that'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
no, we had our experts look at it. We have added the 20-foot height of netting along Rose. That's to protect against foul balls. Now, during batting practice, we showed you that batting cage, which will essentially take away all of that problem during batting practice. During the games, which has existed since time immemorial, there's really no height that you can put this at that's going to stop pop-ups from going over there. If there's a pop-up that's hitting the foul in the foul direction of Rose, which is the right field way, there's no prevention of that. It doesn't matter how high up we go. There would be no way to stop that unless you went quite so high, and then I'm sure we would have visual impact discussions. So the point was, we've put it at the height where line drives, which are hard hit balls, which could create a problem, will be captured. And we did not believe that it was worthy of having the additional height at any other point along Rose.
Right, but I think that, the reason Westchester brought it up, and I think the reasons we've brought it up, is that a foul ball that's straight down the right field line, that is just foul, is a pretty fierce line drive. And that can end up on Hobart, that can end up wherever you might be pointing. And having the fence stop prematurely, I think, is an issue that we were concerned about and Westchester was concerned about. So I was a little surprised that wasn't in the
But again,
revised
that is
application.
300 feet, more than 300 feet from home plate.
Understood.
We're talking about. So our experts don't believe that that's something that should be required. You're certainly, the board is certainly entitled to its opinion. It's just not something we thought was, it is a significant expense to do that.
Mhm.
And we looked at it, and it's not something we would voluntarily do.
Yeah, and I
but
think
we're willing to
neither
have
we
a
nor
discussion.
Westchester were thinking about having it run the entire extent. It was more for that screaming line drive down the
If
right
there-
field line.
If there's
So-
a proposal, we would certainly look at it.
So the second point, and I think it's a communication point, I think we have no interest in wading into the landlord-tenant, discussions that you have with Concordia. I think certain matters are for this board and certain matters are for other jurisdictions that this board is not part of. But I think the one concern we had, at least I had, coming out of the letter that we just received from Concordia, is they were indicating that, at least to date, there's been no dialogue with them. I don't know if that's accurate. I wanted to give you a chance to say whatever you'd like to say, but we're very much a neighborly community. Concordia is the closest building of any to this property, and so I was surprised that it sounds like there's no dialogue. So just wanted to get your perspective on that.
Mike, you want to answer that? Just state your name.
Yeah, please take the mic. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike Smirglio, Iona University. And that is correct. There has been no dialogue up until now. There was a letter submitted to our general counsel on the 22nd when the university was closed. And we just arrived back from break last week and we have not responded.
I guess the question is there an intent to enter into any kind of dialogue with?
Yes,
Concord?
as Mark stated, there is an intent to do that. We will do so as we get a contractor on board and start plans for construction. We are going to use best practices, but we couldn't think of doing the project without having team meetings because we don't want to paint, rose-colored picture here, but there is going to be construction. It is going to be a contained site. However, there's going to be commotion, and we want to understand. And I think the conservatory management team has done a great job in expressing some of their needs. But once they hear the way we're setting up construction, there may be additional needs, and I'm certain we can address them within reason.
Yeah, I think the reason we're bringing this up, at least I'm bringing this up, is in general, I think you have a board that is sympathetic to the desire of the applicant to be able to use a baseball field that they acquired for the purposes that they have in front of them. I think in general, there's a desire to find a way to work with all parties, including the neighbors, to come up with the best possible project. But I think in doing that, we're taking into account whether or not Iona has been and will be a good neighbor. And I think the record shows that Iona has been a good neighbor to this point, but in general, good neighbors speak to neighbors. So I'm just a little surprised. With that, I'll let others ask questions.
Thank you. Could we walk through some of the details of the, the right title is the traffic plan, I believe? Game day traffic plan, and the sign, and most important to me is the signage associated with that to make sure that traffic is flowing.
Is there a particular slide you'd like her to put up?
It is
Page 16 in the package.
He was saying 16?
16 or 17, the event traffic management plan.
It's the first table.
Right there. I guess my question, if you go down, my questions, I think it references temporary signage of where to park. I guess my questions are, when will it go up and down, for which days, and what will that signage indicate?
Hi, Joe Castaldo from Iona University. That's temporary signage for just game days and any sort of event that happens on the baseball fields, which is only baseball events. Obviously, we can't have a fixed signs on 22. So there's sandwich boards, 3 feet high, 24 inches wide, that will be directionals with arrows pointed toward Meyer. So they'll be on both sides, facing northbound, facing southbound. They'll also be at rows with all arrow indications toward Meyer. We will have staff out there for game days on rows at the intersection, at the crosswalk, making sure the cars are making that safe. If they're traveling southbound, they make that safe left into Meyer lot. And if they're coming northbound, they just make a right into that Meyer lot. And those signs will be far enough away that a motorist will see that prior to the parking lot.
Mm-hmm. I think the application references 2 campus safety guards and campus safety attendants as needed. So it's at a minimum of 2 or how many?
It's definitely a minimum of 2. It looks like it's going to be more because with Rose Avenue gate and the intersection, the crosswalk, Rose Avenue intersection, and probably will need a directional attendant down in Meyer, showing everyone where to walk up to the seating areas.
Is this the staff that's across the road from Concordia and the Circular Drive?
Yes, we're located right in the Circle Drive there.
They're right across the street.
Yes. But there are mobile patrols all day. We have abundant staff to handle that kind of crowd.
And then the signage on Rose Avenue, historically it has said in multiple places, do not park here. It's illegal to park here. It's clear that signage is not effective. Will there be, I guess my question is, will there be signage that directs people that mistakenly end up on Rose where to park? Because
Yeah, so there is those same sandwich boards will be on the intersection of Rose and 22 with arrows. If anyone does make their way, staff members or anyone else makes their way onto Rose, there are sandwich boards that will state no drop off, no standing as temporary. We'll also redirect them. There'll be a security staff there that's manning the gate that will be able to direct them back to Meyer lot.
could there be a sign that shows where Meyer lot is and where they should go to, or is that not
Well, that will
appropriate?
be all on our website. I think from the engineers wanted our website to state parking lots and where to park game day, and we're doing that.
I understand on the internet, but if a person is driving and ends
Yeah.
up on Rose, they see these signs that just say "Do not park here," and they don't know where to go, right? And so they violate that parking. Would it be, can you provide instruction to say, there is this Meyer lot, you just have to go all the way around,
In a sandwich board, you're saying, or just verbally?
or a permanent signage in that area?
Do we need permits for a permanent sign on Rose? Sandwich, so if you want us to put a permanent sign, that's something we would have to discuss, but we could do a sandwich board map. That's temporary, that comes down right after game day, or pretty much after the fourth or fifth inning, most of the signs could come down.
Other questions?
The other thing, you had mentioned deterrent measures in the comments, in the first responsibilities, I think. Does that like the temporary pylons or things that screw in, that like we have in front of Kraft, for example, that could be used in those no parking areas so that physically people could push through it, but they'd scratch up their car, for example? Is that what you
We
meant
do
by
have
deterrent?
a cone placement for game day, which we've used for the turf field also, where no one does stop on the turf side of Rose. I guess that's the north side of Rose. We could do a cone placement on both sides. So it shows there's no turnaround. Pylons, you mean steady pylons into the sidewalk?
They're the ones that screw in. They can be removed if you needed to, but they can screw in.
If
We
if
have
they're in the
some
cone
places in the village.
family, yeah. We do have high construction cones that we use for different events with some tape. It's not pretty, it doesn't look nice, but we can figure out a cone
Yeah, I wasn't trying to
schematic
lead you
that
on
would
that,
work
actually.
there, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to lead you on that. I was just
Yeah.
trying to understand what the deterrent measures were, and I had some in mind from other places in the village. So, but yeah, cones, some kind of pylons or pillars or something like that, even if they're temporary and movable. That's
We
what
do
you
have
in
that
mind.
in our plan, cone placement.
Yeah, it's a security staff enforcing it's part of the enforcing of no parking zones. It said there would be deterrent measures. So I had envisioned something physical, like pylons or cones or something, when I read that, but I
They
wanted to
are
clarify.
they will be temporary, game day, and then obviously removed before the game is over.
I would just recommend, I don't think they need significant deterrent measures to prevent people from parking there. I think the problem is people don't know where to park. And I think with this new parking space and the walkway to get to the field, if you had some permanent signage there that instead says "do not park" all over the place, but rather says "park here," most people will follow that direction.
There will be sandwich boards with directional arrows on them. Again, they would have to follow directional arrows. If we did have a sandwich board with a map, someone from a vehicle would have to get out and actually walk up to the map and look at it. So which would cause a little more backup. So directional signs will use, obviously verbal commands from staff and personnel would redirect. And I think the same fans would come to the games after they parked in Meyer lot after the first, second game. They pretty much know where they're going to go after that.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant from the board? If not, why don't we ask our consultants to come on up and give us their feedback on this application, please?
Good evening, everyone. Eric Dorsch, KSCJ Consulting. My colleague Rick Bolander had another meeting tonight, so I'll be here to do my best to answer any civil engineering questions. And our other consultant that we're working with from Colliers was not able to attend as well. I have his memo here. If there's any questions, do my best, but we can defer to him and Rick later if need be. If there are no specific questions, in regard to the review. Excuse me. Then if there are no specific questions, I can just go through some remaining items like I've done in the past for the record. So I can do that.
That'd be great.
Great. So the first item that we've noticed needs a little more attention is a formal cut and fill analysis for the entire site to fully understand and substantiate the proposed site development scope and work and understand what that means specifically for part of the seeker form, the full EAF part 2, 1D under impact on land. The applicant has indicated approximate yardage for rock removal and approximate fill, 200 to 300 cubic yards of rock and 2,200 cubic yards of fill, and an estimate on the trucks. That's very important and valuable information, but we'd like to see that for the whole site in a diagram form associated with the tabulation chart, so it's very clear and there's no question. The next item, we suggest that regarding the site landscape plan, that I don't know why this microphone keeps going in and out.
It's cutting in and out. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. So the applicant has acknowledged that there'll be minor improvements, probably likely necessary, as really common on any site. But specifically, we're suggesting, and they're requesting a condition be put in if the board decides to act favorably on the application, that there's a condition that any adjustments in the landscape plan would need to be coordinated with village staff as well as consultants. But we're also suggesting that a formal plan be submitted to have that any adjustments on record, as well as an as-built plan at the completion of the project to document the final as-built conditions. So in comparing the proposed landscape plan, we can understand what was substituted and what the changes are, and that can help understand substantial completion obligation for the project. The next item, and Mark alluded to that in his presentation, that we're suggesting that a condition be added if the board decides to act favorably on the application regarding submitting an updated construction schedule. The applicant has provided a draft construction schedule, which is very helpful, and thank you. But as it may progress, if there's additional information from an awarded contractor, or if that more information, more solidified schedule can come out to verify that nothing changed substantially and things according to as we know it so far. The other item is the sidewalks. We suggest the village planning board should discuss if sidewalks are needed along White Plains Road, State Route 22, and Rose Avenue. Regarding the work in the right-of-way, the crosswalk that the applicant has committed to improving within 2 years of the construction complete project, we are also recommending another condition that a definitive deadline be added to the conditions that would keep track of a definitive completion date for the project, so we can manage expectations for that. Another item is KSCJ is comfortable including another condition of receiving the will serve letter from Viola, the water purveyor. That's in the works, and that takes some time sometimes, so we wouldn't want that to hold it up, but that could be another condition we're recommending. A technical question, item we recognized on the stormwater drawings, that the hydrodynamic separator and the outlet control structure are just need a little attention in their locations. I think they're flip-flopped, and the labeling on the plan, so that just needs to be a little bit more coordinated. That's item number 5 under, for the record, engineering and stormwater management. The other item under engineering and stormwater management is we'd like to see a detail of the isolator row in the underground infiltration system. And we'd like to have confirmation that pre-treatment volume is treated to the volume for mitigation per New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual standards. Another item that it appears in the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Control Plan that was submitted, the pre-development conditions, the metrics and the diagrams and the figures provided for that aren't matching up apples to apples to the post-development conditions. So we just ask that the applicant update those figures and that content in the SWIP so it's clear in the comparison from pre to post. And then the last 2 items from KSCJ are language within the SWIP, which is, again, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Control, the SWIP. Under the construction sequencing schedule and phasing, we would recommend that the most pertinent or all of the information provided in the construction parking management plan that we were just speaking to or talking about be included in that SWIP. So it's in multiple places. So it's a more cohesive package. Oftentimes things get separated and the SWIP is here, the plans are there, the specs are there. So if it's all rolled together in multiple formats, that would be helpful. Same with the trained contractor and qualified inspector requirements. Right now in the SWIP, those are outlined in a general fashion. They need to be tailored to the subject application, just some items that don't apply or some items that require further elaboration that indicate its specificity to the specific project should be elaborated on and developed more in the SWIP. And those are the items from KSCJ. And there were a couple items from Collier's. I don't know if there were specific questions on the parking or.
No, I think we had read their memo.
Okay.
I think we're good with that. Do we have questions for our consultant? I think the one question I would have is, it sounds like the bulk of these, you can't speak for the applicant, but the bulk of these are matters that could be cleaned up by the applicant between now and the next meeting in coordination with you. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. Yes. Yeah.
In
And
terms of timing.
we're cleaning things up and coordinating things as we go, and a couple more items come up as we go, as they do.
Okay. Good. All right. So I think with the completion of, is there anything else from the consultants, or are we good on that front?
That's it. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Thank you. So with that, I appreciate the patience of the members of the public who have been here. We're going to open up the public meeting now. If you have comments on the application, please come up to the mic, identify yourself, and let us know what you have to say. We have received a number of letters from members of the community, and be assured we have read all of them.
Hi, I'm Jay Curran. I live at 9 Hobart Street. My comments tonight are going to pertain exclusively to the public safety implications of the project. Myself and 18 other households on Hobart Street in Fulling signed a letter that we sent to the board on December 15th. So some of what I'm about to say is probably a little redundant if you read the letter. I feel strongly that the proposal does not adequately address the very real public safety hazards that would follow if Division I college games are played on the field. To be clear, I'm not here to speculate about what will happen if baseball is played on the field as proposed. Longtime residents like me can recall when Concordia's program used the field up until 2019. It was not uncommon for balls to be hit out of the playing field onto Rose Avenue, White Plains Road, and even into the backyard of number 2 Hobart. Since 2019, the field has been used sparingly for baseball, but in those rare instances, baseballs continue to fly out of the playing field just as they did in the past. For those who live in the surrounding neighborhoods, the acceptable number of baseballs batted out of that field is 0. I don't think that that statement should be controversial, but it feels when I look at Iona's proposal that they don't share that view. It seems pretty apparent to me they haven't done everything that they can to mitigate the risks of balls being hit out of that field. First, the proposed field dimensions fall well short of NCAA guidelines for Division I fields. Those are 330 feet from the apex of home plate to each foul pole, 375 feet in right and left center field, and 400 feet in straightaway center. Iona's proposal calls for a right field fence that is 300 feet from home plate at the foul pole. 300 feet is what Little League Baseball recommends for their senior division, 15 and 16-year-old kids. To complicate matters further, the short right field fence aligns directly with a well-known traffic choke point, the offset intersection of Rose Avenue and Hobart Street. If you've ever driven down there, it only takes one car making a left turn onto Hobart or a left turn onto Rose Avenue to get traffic to queue up. And it creates the most dangerous situation you could possibly have. The shortest point of your baseball field aligns with where traffic queues up on a regular basis. Saturdays, doesn't matter what day, happens all the time. Their proposal included a fence trajectory diagram that noted it would take 90 to 95 mile per hour exit velocities to clear the proposed new 40-foot fence along White Plains Road. The diagram used the average of Division I players' exit velocities, which is just over 86 miles an hour. When I look at that diagram and I look at it, it's implicit in that their design is only going to capture some of the baseballs that get hit in a game. Elite Division I players, right now, this is last year, their exit velocities are just under 103 miles an hour. This design isn't, they proposed a design which has an acceptable level of baseballs flying out of there. That's implicit in what they're saying. 90 to 95 mile per hour exit velocities are going to clear the 40-foot fence. That's happening right now. It's happening right now. My hope is that the planning board will ask the applicant to fundamentally reevaluate their proposal to bring the field dimensions in line with NCAA Division I standards. This might involve reorienting the field on the site, possibly taking down all or a portion of the Meyer Center or the tennis courts that are there. but really expanding this in a way that brings the field in line with NCAA guidelines. It's not even close right now. And the way that it's situated, it's the most dangerous situation for the people who live in and around it. As it stands right now, the question is, if this proposal is allowed to proceed without significant design modifications, the question isn't if balls are going to be hit out of the field, it's when and what they're going to hit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there someone else who'd like to come up and speak, please? In whatever order you'd like.
Good evening and happy evening, as I always say, to our mayor and the members of our planning board. Thank you for your continued time and attention to this matter. I'm Kathleen Suss, Executive Director of Concordia Conservatory, for the record. As we all know, Concordia Conservatory is a longstanding educational tenant in Stein Hall. We are not here to oppose Iona University's project. We are here to ensure that as this review continues, the projections necessary for our daily operations are clearly addressed. We submitted a letter, as everyone knows, on December 22nd with a follow-up on January 13th. To date, we have not received a response to our request to meet directly with Iona and to resolve these issues collaboratively. Tonight, we want to clearly and briefly explain why these protections matter.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Sebenoyan. I'm a village resident at 51 Tanglewild, Concordia parent, and also board member. I'm going to discuss tenant standing and rights. Concordia operates under a valid lease and has the right to a reasonable and feasible use of Stein Hall. Iona's revised submission does not acknowledge Concordia as an existing tenant and addresses access, parking, and circulation only in general campus terms. For an education program serving children and families daily, these details are not abstract. They directly affect whether we can function.
Good evening. My name is Brian Toolin, board member, Concordia Conservatory. Live at 10 Summit here in Bronxville. Just wanted to point out that for us, continuous unobstructed access, especially ADA access, is essential for our Concordia families. And while the Iona submission generally says that, yes, access will be maintained, we haven't seen anything that provides enforcement of that so that they do maintain access during construction. And for us as a community, it's very important to us to make sure that is maintained and there's some way that that is enforced. Thank you.
Good evening, Ratiba Guy, Concordia board member, Bronxville resident. My daughter is also a student at Concordia School. I'm going to address parking preservation. Parking is not a convenience issue, it is an operational necessity. During construction, throughout the construction process, Concordia requires a minimum of 16 parking spaces adjacent to Stein Hall in the north side parking lot. Iona's material lists overall campus parking, but they do not protect conservatory parking from construction or event overflow. Without guaranteed parking, parents, children, and older adults cannot safely come to lessons and access their instruction.
Good evening. I'm Ruby Huang, Bronxville resident on Paddington Road, and also parent of Concordia Conservatory student and a board member as well. I'll be addressing construction noise and reverberation. Music instruction is uniquely sensitive to construction noise and reverberation. Even moderate construction activity can make teaching impossible. Concordia requested limits on high decibel and vibration intensive work during teaching hours, controls on reverberation, and advance notice of disruptive activity. Iona's submission does not include a construction phase noise plan tied to Concordia's instructional schedules.
Hi, my name is Joe Lodi. I'm a resident in Bronxville, 47 Masterton Road, and I have children that attend the conservatory. This is a post-construction sound and amplification. We acknowledge the sound studies submitted and the proposed PA limits. However, those studies evaluate sound in general community terms. The statement that the PA system will not be audible within the conservatory building provided that the windows and doors are closed is not applicable for two reasons. Carolyn?
Thank you. I'm Carolyn Moriarty. Can you hear me? Also a conservatory board member and resident of 44 Edgewood Lane, so neighbor to the conservatory. Two reasons that the system that's proposed is not applicable. Sound is supposed to be measured at the property line inside the building. So suggesting that the windows can be shut and we won't have sound issues does not follow. It's not practical for the school to have windows closed during spring, summer, and fall. Also, homeowners cannot be expected to not use their outdoor property because of noise. Speaking of noise, it's difficult to imagine sound. So tonight we're going to share some sound with you and help illustrate the points. We're going to start ambient noise, which was tested by Cerami and Associates, a distinguished engineering firm, at 20 North Road, and found that ambient noise at 20 North Road was 36 decibels. So let's hear that. Okay, everybody got that? Okay. The second level is we're going to hear construction noise, which was not evaluated in the Kavanaugh-Tochi study. So we're going to show you what construction noise will sound like. I think we've all had enough of that. And then this is just to put in perspective how it's very hard to perceive these noise things when they're just numbers on a page. You really have to hear them. We're now going to hear a demo of the sounds addressed by the studies in Kavanaugh-Tochi. They referenced the bass at 40 decibels and not to exceed 75. So let's hear what that sounds like. And this is 75. Okay. And finally, let's focus on crowd noise, which was addressed in the December 17th Kavanaugh-Tochi memo. It claims that the crowd noise will be at 61 decibels. Let's listen to that. And finally, we're going to The Society for American Baseball Research estimates crowd noise at a college baseball game is typically 91 to 101 decibels. Our machine only goes up to 88, so we're not even giving you the full experience. Sorry if that was painful for anybody. I hope that this has been illustrative and instructive, and I would urge everybody to really, really think about, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we have one more treat for you. Here it comes.
So this is the PA system at 81 to 85
That's right.
decibels, which is what is more realistic from Society for American Baseball Research.
Thank you. Okay, that's our presentation. I hope it was instructive. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public who would like to come on up and share their thoughts?
Yes, my name is Mirta Castrapelli. I live in 5 Willow Circle here in Bronxville, and I'm also a member of the Concordia board. And I would like to bring up today safety, equity, and just overall family experience. Concordia families include very young children, older adults, and that are arriving throughout the day. So they require safe circulation, clear drop-off, and predictability. Equity and accessibility also matter. Disruptions will disproportionately affect individuals with limited mobility, tight schedules, and special needs. So again, these are impacts that we believe need to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come on up.
Hello, my name is Alexis Saku. I'm a Bronxville resident at 5 Oval Court, and I have 3 children at the conservatory, and I'm also on the board. And I'd just like to add that Concordia requested a designated campus liaison and advance notice of construction and events. Iona's submission includes no formal communication process. Without coordination, small issues quickly become major disruptions.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Seufert. I'm a village resident, student, a parent of students at Concordia, and also the final board member who will be speaking right now. The concerns raised in Concordia's December 22nd letter, as well as the one on the 13th, simply remain largely unaddressed, and we are asking that they be resolved before any approval is granted, and very much appreciate your comments on communication as something that we all want, just so everybody can coexist and play ball and sing songs. You can obviously tell from the music, you know, how you're going to have a flute lesson with that right there. So I think that just the opportunity to discuss is simply what we're asking for. And so we respectfully ask that the planning board ensure that these tenant protections are either resolved directly with Iona or incorporated as clear enforceable conditions of approval. Our goal is simple: to continue serving the community with the highest educational standards, safely and without disruption. Thank you.
Okay, are there other members of the public who would like to come up, please?
Hi, I'm Gina Lander. I live at 2 Hobart Street, directly across from the field. I've been coming to all of your meetings, so I've heard most people speak. However, I haven't heard anyone mention baseballs in their backyard next to their child's play set. And my son, who's 4 years old, is often in the backyard playing by himself with us watching, but he'll go in and out with the dog. And I don't want to be sending my son in the backyard wearing a helmet unnecessarily. We're playing out there often, and we can hear all of the music at all of their practices. I can give you a set list of all the music that they listen to during their practices. We hear it all. So we're equidistant from the stadium, what would be the stadium, to Concordia. And what I'm going to say right now is going to be a little disgusting, but I don't think any of you have had to remove an ingested baseball, the leather and the lacing, from your dog's rectum. I have had to do this because the balls end up in my backyard and then my dog ingests them and has trouble releasing them. So these are some of the things that we've experienced for many years. And I'm talking, my daughter was 2 years old when this first happened, 2 or 3 years old. So she's now 12. So this is ongoing. I've been collecting baseballs repeatedly for at least 10 years. And that's just with a practice field. So the idea of now having D1 players really does make me shudder and make me realize I will no longer be able to use my outdoor space in the backyard.
Thank you.
Or front yard, for that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has a comment?
Two things that I just thought of that I forgot. I think it would be a mistake for the board to treat this as a hyper local issue. White Plains Road is one of the busiest, if not the busiest, roads in the village. On Saturdays, when most of the games are likely to be played, I would guess that most of the village uses White Plains Road to get to Eastchester and Scarsdale and the Hutch or wherever they're going. So it's not a hyperlocal issue because balls flying out of there put most of the people who drive in the village at risk. And I already forgot the second thing I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
But thank you. Okay, with that, I think we're going to adjourn the public meeting. Thanks to everyone who has come out and had their say. And with that, I think we'll go into a board discussion. I think I've already flagged the two issues that are foremost for me. I'm sure others will have, their issues as we continue to progress with this application. I think as I mentioned, at least for myself, and I think many of the board members are sympathetic to the idea of this use at this field, if it can be done in a way that's, neighborly, let's say. And I think we've been working with the applicant, and the applicant has made many strides in achieving that. I think the two things that were jumping out at me based on the most recent submission were the decision to not extend the fence around as Westchester County had suggested. That struck me as, a good suggestion. And the second is, the fact that we've been at this a long time and it sounds like there's been no dialogue with Concordia. I'm not sure that there's any legal requirement for a dialogue with the closest neighbor, but it does seem like a neighborly thing to do. So I'll open that up for other comments from the board.
So I'll start by saying that one of the, main responsibilities of the planning board is to ensure that people act neighborly to each other and instill a strong sense of community and feeling like they have an outlet to discuss issues and a goal to, live happily in our community. So it's very disheartening to hear the concern over the project as a whole. It's we know that Iona has been a great influence on the village, and its presence is potentially going to transform the neighborhoods in a very positive way. However, when you hear the assurances, there sometimes is not enough backing or you do feel confident that people are being heard. So a couple of things that really stand out for me: noise, obviously. I think there's no doubt that there is going to be an increase in noise from the project. How do we address it? What are there going to be if there are concerns about noise that wasn't even expected? The one thing that stood out to me was, there's not going to be any blasting, to remove bedrock, but there is going to be an excavator-mounted hydraulic hammer. Not quite sure exactly how loud that is, but it's going to be loud. When I think about the length of construction, the construction schedule that was presented, which you definitely appreciate, I completely understand how difficult it is to put a schedule together for construction, but it's rudimentary. It's calling out a year. It's likely going to be longer, and it's likely going to be louder than people even imagine. That said, they're allowed to construct and build, but if there's no community interface, then it's destined to fail as a project, as being part of a community. So it's disconcerting that there has been to date no communication with Concordia. So I definitely would urge that. Also, KSCJ's call for an overall cut and fill plan definitely should happen. We want to see the extent of it. We want to make sure that there's a really detailed construction schedule proposed, something that Concordia could potentially work around or work with, and understand, potentially, at least during construction, when they should not be, maybe having their concerts. It's sort of absurd to think that if the doors and windows are closed, as one member had mentioned, that should be acceptable. People have to get in and out of the building, and it's just being sort of rational about things. Parking is going to be increased. There has to be, definitely good wayfinding. There's definitely issues of crossing over 22. I think that the call for a requirement to have that crosswalk addressed within a certain period is definitely a positive thing to be included as part of the potential approval. And life safety issues regarding the balls leaving the park. I mean, I understand that there is costs associated with an additional 42-foot fence going around, and I understand the compromise at 20 feet, but why not bring it to 42 all the way around? Why not consider bringing it up higher if potentially that would keep all the balls in? So, just making concessions beyond those that have already been made. I know that they have gone out of their way to improve the drainage situation and make that better. So definitely recognize that. But I think there's a little bit more that needs to be done to make the community comfortable that things are going to be addressed now and in the future.
Who else would like to participate in the discussion?
Yeah, I would reinforce what both of you said about the field height. I think that anything that can be done to mitigate that, including that side barrier where it goes from 40 to 20 relatively quickly, I'd like to see some more thoughts on that, particularly since some guidance has already been suggested in that direction. I also was surprised to see the sidewalk. There were no sidewalk improvements on the White Plains roadside, which to me was also consistent with the traffic crosswalk. That 2-year window, I was surprised at. I think it's a concern that, to me, it would make sense to do the crosswalk improvements in parallel with the construction itself. I don't understand why you would call out a delay at all for that. I don't understand what would be a blocker to do improvements in parallel. I would also like to see a more detailed construction plan and schedule. I think that would be helpful for you as you are trying to select a construction firm to partner with, that you lay the parameters for what you're looking for more clearly with them. That schedule you have, I think, does inform, but it may be helpful to have more detail, particularly since the consultants also pointed that out. I felt more comfortable bringing that up again because it wasn't just me. There were several of us in this room that had the same concern. So those were the major things that I'd like to kind of.
When you were talking about the sidewalk improvements, what were you referring to?
Well, I think the sidewalk has generally been bad in the White Plains area. It's just very short there.
But are you talking about the crosswalk improvement or something
I
else?
think if you're doing the crosswalk improvement, I was surprised that you wouldn't do anything on the White Plains side. I do understand it might encourage people to go.
You're
to
saying
Rose.
along White Plains? Road.
Yeah, along White Plains, because that was part of one of the earlier discussions and kind of was dropped specifically.
Right, but I think what Iona is proposing is to limit the parking on Rose Avenue and the use of Rose Avenue to people who will be coming into the field. And there won't be any traffic going from Rose Avenue along White Plains and into the entrance there. So it seems like they've mitigated the problem that this improvement might cause that would require a sidewalk improvement. While it might be nice to have a sidewalk there, I don't think there would be any significant impact on that particular area because of this project. And
Well, it did strike me that if you have a sidewalk which is on the same side as the fencing and it's close to the fence, that would make a safer path for people walking in that street.
But
as opposed to people walking on the other side, which is the only side there's sidewalk.
But nobody on a sidewalk on that side of White Plains is going to be hit by a battered ball if they're walking behind a 40-foot fence.
Well, we've seen the numbers. It's unlikely, but it would be even less likely if they're right next to the fence as opposed to
I mean,
20 yards away from it.
this is the real world, and we can't, I've been impressed by how the wastewater situation has been vastly improved. I've been impressed by how they've dealt with the sound, and there've been baseball games there, so there's going to be no significant negative impact from the crowds at baseball games because they're going to continue to play games there. The only change they've made is the sound system, and they seem to have gone to great lengths to make sure that that doesn't affect anything beyond the field in any significant way. And batted balls, I looked at pictures of the field back in 2007. You can actually go to Google and go back in time. And there was nothing more than a ordinary chain link fence along White Plains Road and nothing along Rose Avenue. And since then, I guess Concordia put up that 20-foot fence and a small fence along Rose Avenue. And now there's proposed mitigation to the problems of batted balls that seems to significantly reduce the risk that batted balls will exit and cause all the problems we've been talking about. So is there a significant adverse effect to be anticipated? I'm not sure I see it given the ameliorative steps that Iona is proposing to take. They don't have to make it perfect. They just have to make sure they don't have a significant adverse effect. So while there's a lot of things they could do to solve every problem, they're really not required to design a perfect facility, just like we're all not required to build perfect houses or have perfect retail establishments. And likewise, I think that traffic and parking issues have been addressed, although I'm particularly unsympathetic to trying to make sure that there's lots and lots of parking for everybody who wants to drive a car, because I'd sort of rather see a less auto-centric village in many ways. And I've seen lots of things, lots of people spend time and effort dealing with parking issues that we really aren't going to solve. And if we could solve them, we'd probably pave over most of the village. So that's.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you. And thank you for pointing out the positives on it, because I kind of pointed out, well, it could improve around the margins on it, but I do think that the fencing is going to be the best safety netting that's been available since the 1960s, including the 1960s, not since. So in the entire history of the site. I think the water remediation is the first time it's really being addressed in a meaningful way, and it's significantly improved. And I understand that there was interest in seeing comparison between current state and future state. I'm not sure I see much benefit to that frankly. There's one point I disagreed with a consultant on, but because the current state is known to be a problem, and how bad is it? I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time on that. We already are, there are other projects in Eastchester addressing this very issue. We know it's bad. So I think if you look at each of the areas, there are a lot of net improvements on this. And if you're gonna like make the investment in 42 versus 45 versus 20 feet versus staggered, like I'm focusing on those minor elements for me, but I think net, this is a big step up from how the usage of that site is. And as I said in my previous comments, at the last meeting or the one before, there are a lot of alternative uses for this site. And many of those are going to be much larger construction footprint in duration and noise than a baseball field would be. So, I was happy to see that we're taking something which is current use since the 60s. People who bought in this neighborhood may not love having the field there, but they were aware that it was there. It's unavoidable. There are times I don't love being a block away from the school, but I knew the school was there. So I do think there's a lot of positives that addressed here. So what my comments were intended to say, around the margins, are there things that we could do to kind of clean that up? And in particular with the planning, the construction planning, are there things that would be helpful both to community as well as Iona as they're selecting a construction partner, that, some details, additional details there might help with the bidding process. And I've been as a consultant in a lot of bids. Sometimes people don't articulate cleanly what they want. Other times they over communicate and they don't leave enough time for you to provide your own expertise. So there's a line to be balanced there, but I just think maybe a little more detail would be helpful just based on what
You haven't given Albert a chance to get a word in edgewise. I don't know if you have anything you'd want to
These
add.
things that I agree that my two biggest things are what Michael, I think, fence around Rose, and really please part of the community.
Is there any other discussion? If not, I propose that I think, have learned a lot today from everyone, and I think this has been another constructive step along this process. I propose that someone make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Everybody?